episode 558. She's feeling
great.
Sarah revealed that she is going to see Alanis Morisette at the Hollywood Bowl tonight.
Yes. I'm so excited.
And it prompted me to want to know if a couple weeks ago you saw they had released, I think it was just an announcement about a documentary about her that is coming out. And she participated in it, did tons of interviews, like she was involved. Mm-hmm. But then she apparently watched the final cut, and then now she's mad. And she's like, I'm not supporting this. This is not...
What?
Yeah.
Is she secretly a bee?
Oh, no, I think it's that they maybe were. Like that they took liberties. That's my... Because she's not a bee.
Yeah, and wasn't she with Ryan Reynolds?
I don't know.
You can't be a bitch if you're with Ryan Reynolds.
I don't know if she was.
I think she dated Ryan Reynolds a long time ago because I remember thinking for a split second that I had a chance with Ryan Reynolds, and it was because Alanis Morisette,
yeah.
He dates Alanis, he could get down with me. I feel like we're kind of similar.
Well, because I think his defining characteristic is that he's funny, witty, kind of. So I think he appreciates somebody who can enjoy that.
God, he's so sexy.
Yeah, he's very handsome.
Men agree.
Yeah. I can't imagine anyone being like, ooh, gross.
Right. I wouldn't kick him out of bed for eating crackers, as you say.
Right.
I love that saying so much.
But now, it's kind of weird. This kind of reminded me of the Barbra Streisand effect because now I really want to see it. What could she be mad about? She was doing
what could she be mad about?
But...
I mean...
We know how that goes with producing and editing.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, we know how that goes with her. And I'm here to remind you.
Her next album is going to be the best ever because she's furious. That's really funny.
God.
Yeah, but.
What if she was just like, wasn't this ironic?
What if that's how she lives her whole life? Is just quoting
just in
her
song
own
puns,
lyrics.
Quoting her own songs.
I'll tell you what, though, I had to make a list before we started today because I've watched so many good documentaries that
really?
I'm going to have to do a roundup, Susie's roundup.
Oh, I love a Susie roundup. I watched I think I still have 1 or 2 episodes left. The 24 personalities of Tommy,
Did
whatever
you think that was insightful?
Susie?
Yeah.
You undersold it to me. I love a documentary that leaves you asking so many questions.
Yes.
And it answered some, it asked some, it made me think about the world of psychology, about diagnoses. I'm not 100% convinced that he had that it was
well, so just to refresh
so
your
much.
memory, there was, I forget the name of it, but on Netflix there's a documentary about a serial rapist in Ohio State campus, and they have all this footage in there about that reveals that he is someone with multiple personality, which is now called
dissociative identity disorder.
Yeah. And
which is a thing, and I have absolutely worked with, seen. But there's an awareness.
You don't think he has it, is what you're saying?
I do think he has it, but I think that there isn't a lack of as much of a lack of awareness as we think.
Really?
Yes.
It's like the
in
hypnotism
the same way.
thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
That is exactly the example I was going to use. And isn't it curious that they said people who have DID are more susceptible to hypnosis? And I would absolutely say that I have had elements of, and obviously I don't have dissociative identity disorder, but a lot of people with a trauma past do have.
You compartmentalize. You talk about this all the time. Yeah.
Yes. It's totally a thing.
So it's like a
but there's an
milder
awareness.
version.
Yeah, there's an awareness of it. And I think when you see how he, in different environments, splintered and fractured into additional personalities, that was kind of his doing. I think that there was a desire or a intention on his part to maybe play into that a little bit.
So do you think he should have been convicted?
Yes.
Because even if he has it,
Yes.
you should still be held responsible.
Yes.
Huh.
I do not think somebody should be you're not guilty by reason of mental insanity, but you have to. You're locked up you're not going anywhere. He had way too many privileges. He's
he did
getting out
go
on the
to
weekend, have a car, like driving around, going to doing interviews. Fuck that. I don't think so. If he were anybody who's not a white male, done.
Right. Okay.
So fascinating.
Yeah, it was fascinating, whether he has it or not, or whether it's exaggerated or not. It was really insightful for me because you could see why he might have this problem and then the consequences. So, yeah, that was a good one.
So, you already got me excited about one. I can't wait for your roundup.
Susie's documentary roundup, which, I did watch this month's Documentary Club one, October. I chose Rewind, which is about a child sexual abuse survivor. And it's just like a lot of the other ones, like Capturing the Friedmans and others, where they just have a trove of home movies. So then you feel like you can really get a sense for what happened and like the various characters in the story. You can see them over time. So I loved it. And if you want to join the documentary club, you can join on our website because we meet once a month and we talk about these, which is like all I live for.
It's the best.
I just want to talk about these films all the time.
She's like, hey, I can't just hear Sarah's opinion. I need some other voices.
Yeah, and we don't always watch the same ones. So
and then everybody gives us their like the ones that they've seen, and
yeah,
I love that part.
The best one I watched this month though was the Way Down Low on HBO Max about the cult leader with the huge hair.
Oh, this keeps popping up in like my Instagram feed or something, like the picture of it.
Yeah,
HBO Max, right? I feel like I have that.
If you're watching this on Patreon, I'm going to find a picture of her because HBO Max. Because like here's the thing with why it was so interesting. You know how usually with cults they kind of dress in like weird Amish clothes and
right.
You know, they
tracksuits.
Yeah, there's always like an element of sartorial nightmare, and in this case, I mean, she had that bad hair, but like in general, they dress in a modern way, and they appear to be fit into society. You know,
she looks just from the poster like she might own some LuLaRoe stuff.
Yeah, I could see that.
In the Venn diagram, there might be some overlap.
Okay, wait. I got to find the best picture. Oh, God. Look at this hair.
Wow. Wow. And I bet that's without a bump it.
Oh, my God.
I bet that's just teasing.
They said that and you could tell in the documentary.
How
it just,
does she even do that?
I know. It is impressive. It really defies gravity.
It's her and Trump.
But that one was
crazy hair.
Amazing because I did not know what to expect going in. I didn't have any of the information about where they are now or like what happened.
Yeah.
So,
what is this cult?
Well, it began in the 90s when she just had like a diet plan called Way Down, W-A-Y, Way Down. And it was like with a cross.
Not W-E-I-G-H down?
Maybe it was, but like the film is with a W-A-Y. So anyway, it's a play on words either way. And she was like infusing Christian theology into it. And so like your thinness was evidence of your, goodness.
Oh, no.
Right. Which happens
this kind
all
of
the time.
feels like your family also might prescribe to this.
Like, though, I text my sister and I'm like, this is like if my mom had a cult.
Okay, because I was going to say, I was like, this feels like your mom is putting out these same messages.
The smaller you are, the more godly and pure and, sinless, all that stuff. It's like evidence of your virtue and discipline.
Wow, just disappear.
But like a lot of people do this without actually saying it, but she was actually saying it. And so she had this program, and it was about like instead of eating, you should be focusing on Jesus. So that was her kind of. It was just portion control.
Well, if that isn't a replacement for an addiction, like you're just swapping it out.
Which, that might be okay, but, like...
It's okay until you... It's kind of like the work, like any other diet. We've talked about this before, like CrossFit people, whatever. You do you, but don't prescribe your plan to me.
Yeah, well, she was prescribing it.
That's it. It's like they think, oh, well, if this worked for me, then it's going to work for everybody. And she's like the one size fits all thing.
Well, and it was super
size
successful.
Size is 00.
Yeah, right. Ow, my cat. Okay, so she... that was a successful business, and she was written about in the New Yorker. She was like on the Today Show, and so I think she started to feel like powerful and really buy into her hype.
What's it called? Like validation.
Yes. So then she was like, "I know, I'm going to start a church." So that's when it really turned cuckoo.
Now, I always am curious about that. Okay, you tell me, because you like research cults and stuff like that. That I get hung up when it has a Christian foundation and the whole like no worshiping false idols, like the idea that they then make themselves like this deity.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there's like a way that I'm like.
Yeah.
Can say this better, but it just makes me like,
they kind of...
When is that moment? Or is it from the beginning like that?
No, I think it just grows usually over time. Yeah, because it wouldn't be very convincing if someone you met was just like, oh, I talk to God and he talks to me. In fact, I'm a vessel for him. You'd be like, well, you're batshit crazy. But when it's like this slow burn, then you start seeing like good things happen in your life maybe, or like a community that you really love. And then you get all these benefits, and then you start thinking, well, maybe she is divinely inspired or a prophet or whatever. So it's like the frog.
The bigger the hair, the closer to God.
Yeah.
And she's really pushing that.
One cult I would join, though, is the cult of good sleep. That
absolutely.
I feel like the people at Proper should start, because as you all know, I have trouble sleeping, and I think a lot of people do because you got anxiety or whatever, you're busy, and Proper is such a great option if you need like
like proper sleep.
Yeah, you need proper sleep, but you don't want to do anything extreme. You just want to be soothed.
Non-addictive, no habit forming.
And now Proper has a CBD formula, so if that is something that works for you, then this would be a great option. And it just helps you kind of like mentally get into that space of calming down, know that it's time for bed, and then you go night-night, and then you sleep all night. Imagine that.
Yes. Like you want to go to bed.
You want to go to bed. You won't procrastinate this time.
Like I do.
They're drug-free, gentle, non-habit forming, made with 100% vegan natural ingredients. We love that. And you won't feel groggy or anything. Start improving your sleep with Proper. Visit getproper.com right now to order yours today and use our special promo code BRAINCANDY to get 10% off everything. An additional 10% off subscriptions, including that CBD one. Don't wait. That's promo code BRAINCANDY for 10% off at getproper.com. You'll love it. Anyway, so this lady is running this cult, and it's like basically if you don't lose the weight or if you gain some over time, then you were kind of like excommunicated and stuff.
You're out if you. Well, shit, man.
I know, it's real tough. And like her husband was overweight, and she was with him for like 30 years, and then she left him. Which none of the members were allowed to get divorces, but she was. And then she married Joe Lara, who played Tarzan on some movie about Tarzan. And it was such a weird turn of events where you're like, what
weird.
am I watching? But anyway, it's
That's
great.
like one of those things where you're like, this can only be... Sometimes when I hear stories like that, I'm like, yeah, it's probably a simulation.
What is?
Just everything.
Oh, yeah, like human life.
Like, that's just
this
fucking
can't be
weird.
Real. Yeah.
That can't be real.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It was 3 episodes. You got to watch it.
I totally will.
It's great.
It keeps popping up, and I keep hearing people talk about it. And I'm always fascinated by cults that are run by women.
Yeah, those are few and far between.
They are, and it's a particular type, and it's
What is that type? Like, if you had to say.
Why are they always blonde?
They are always blonde.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to say it, but
It makes sense, though, because if they tend to buy into, like, the patriarchal structure, and that buys into, like, colonialist ideas about hierarchy and beauty.
European beauty standards.
Yeah. And that's another thing
sure.
Peg's real into. I mean, my whole family is just, like, it's like Children of the Corn or whatever. Like, blonde weirdos.
Well,
anyway,
cool. I'm definitely going to check that one out.
Okay, then there's an entire series on Netflix called Untold. Have you seen any of those?
Is this the sports one?
There is Malice at the Palace, which is sport. Yeah, they must all be, because one was
they
boxing.
are. They're sport. I love when Susie's into a sports doc.
And this was real good. Malice at the Palace was great, because that was about...
People are saying that was just, like, made them like basketball, or made them interested in basketball, or
Yeah, well,
like, you didn't have to care about basketball to know that that's an amazing documentary.
Yes. And it was great because apparently there was this big fight at a basketball game involving the players and fans, which, like, never happens, that the fans would be, like, in the midst of the brawl. Right. But they did a great job of providing all the camera angles, and they did it slowly and walked you through. And then this happened, whereas, like, on ESPN, when it happened, it was just like, these thugs, these players are, they're out of control, this hip-hop culture.
Oh, they're using all of the words that I hate. All of those.
Yeah, urban, all of those euphemisms for black people, basically.
Yeah.
And then and they were painted as the villains. Like, get a hold of yourselves, you're out of control. But then you see what actually happened and who is actually out of control, and it's not the black people. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that was great. Good job.
Oh, I can't wait. I hear the team that has the worst fans in basketball, everyone who's a basketball fan knows that these fans are the worst, the meanest, the cruelest. Utah Jazz.
Yes, why? That was in the Michael Jordan one, too.
Because then what I've heard is the
Mormons.
It is, yes, it is, because that kind of aggression, is not something that is accepted. It's definitely repressed. But in the context of cheering for your team or in sports, it's allowed. Mm-hmm. So they don't know where the line is, and they just let it all out. And
it's how they love
repressed shit.
Snacks and candy.
They love snacks and candy.
They really do. As, like, statistically. Right. They really love it. And it makes sense, because if you can't have freaking caffeine or alcohol or anything like that, then a candy bar is nice.
When Chet and I were friends, I got him like a 5-pound bag or whatever, I don't know what the size was, of just the marshmallows from Lucky Charms.
Was he psyched?
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. And that makes sense, I guess. But yeah, like...
Pretty sure I got that for him.
Well, and then another one in that series was about Christy Martin, who is the best female boxer in the world.
Oh, is this the one that got with her trainers?
Yes.
Oh,
how do you
Susie,
know about all of them, but then you don't watch them?
Because I don't know. I think I might eavesdrop on conversations when I'm out in public, because I definitely haven't talked to other humans about this. The only people I talk to are you and my clients, and so I don't know how I would know all this.
No,
but
it was great. He tried to kill her, Sarah.
What?
He stabbed her and shot her.
What?
Yes.
Holy fuck.
Yes. It was really insane.
He stabbed her.
Because we were like halfway
done. And she's the number one female boxer?
Yeah. But then he wanted to spar with her when they were still married. And, he's a big man, much bigger than her. She was a lightweight. And he knocked her out. She had never been knocked out in her entire boxing career. And he knocked her out under this guise of
fucking fuck.
Right. And she goes, you know when you're knocking someone out. Like, that's a choice
Yes,
that you're
you
making.
do.
Yeah, but he did it because it was, like, protected. Like, what are you going to do? Go in and say, we were boxing and he knocked me out? Well, nobody's going to arrest him.
You know how people who are pedophiles position themselves in...
Yeah.
They're like, oh, I'm going to be a soccer coach.
Right. Or like a
for
scout
children. I'm going to be
leader.
like a Boy Scout leader.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't surprise me that this motherfucker chose somebody who chose to put himself in an environment where he gets to hit girls.
A woman.
Women.
Mm-hmm.
Woman.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
It was great, though. It was so fascinating to see how she sort of dominated the field. And women's boxing was not, like, nobody cared. You were going to make $3. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, she came out and, like, she was represented by Don King, that guy with the hair.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then, like, she was on the same card as Tyson.
Wow.
And, you know, like, she became, like, an actual draw.
Yes. Yeah.
But in the background, her husband's, like, controlling her. It was weird. And he made her, like, put a penis, like a fake penis in her pants, and he would video her. And then whenever they had problems, he would send it to people.
Oh, my God!
Yeah.
What is wrong with people?
You're such a good reactor.
Because I just can't imagine. The thing that is... I just think back to when we were talking about, I don't know why it stands out now as the example in my mind, about Coney Island.
Yeah.
And I was like, we don't need to go digging through the... I mean, we do. It's, it teaches us stuff. But as soon as you do, you see that everyone has a, like, seedy underbelly, whatever you want to call, like a dark... Everyone has a trauma past. Everyone has their shit, the muck, it's there. For whether you're the number one female boxer, whether you are Kim Kardashian. I always think about how she has eczema. And, like, I'm like, what if Kim Kardashian has eczema? Why did she wear that outfit to the Met Gala?
I did think that. I thought, well...
Did you really?
Yeah.
Because I just, like, made that up off the top of my head. And I was like,
I really
somebody
did.
who suffers from that.
Because she talks about it.
Yeah.
But if you suffer from back pain, may I recommend the Theragun?
Absolutely recommend. If you just
so good
are a human who has a body, I recommend the Theragun.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, it can be, like, therapeutic in this way. But it could just be, like, pleasurable. Theragun is a percussive, massage type of therapy device, and it goes deep into your muscle tension. Adam uses it. I use it. It is so nice to have because if you even just sit at a desk, you get aches and pains or stiffness, and who needs it? Nobody does. And this way you can have, like, your own personal little masseuse at home. Or no, what do they call them? Massage therapist at home. Try Theragun for 30 days starting at only $199. Go to therabody.com/braincandy right now and get your Gen 4 Theragun today. That's therabody.com/braincandy, therabody.com/braincandy. Great Christmas gift, just an idea.
Yeah, and I've paid more for crappy massages.
That is such a good point.
Yeah,
and this
at, like, fancy hotels.
Mm-hmm.
I remember once, it was right before my wedding, and I was like, I'm going to get a massage at the hotel we were getting married at. And I'm divorced now, in case anybody doesn't know that. I feel like I always have to say that after I talk about being married.
We should say that all the time.
All the time. This is when I was, like, not good at speaking up for myself, and there was the air conditioning blowing on me the whole time. I was freezing my ass off. It was at, like, a fancy hotel, so I definitely paid, like, upwards of $200.
That is not okay.
It was miserable! Mm-hmm. And then it felt like just, like, a cat walking on my back, like, wasn't even good. Like, just was like, nah. Like, I was like, this is...
Well,
I just left feeling more stressed out. I was like, I should have just fucking used the Theragun.
Well, and you're a massage enthusiast. Like, you are a connoisseur.
Well, yeah, because... It does it for me.
Yes, right.
It can do it for me.
It gets her motor running.
It really does. God, when I find a guy or a lady who's into massaging, holy fuck. And they're like
That's
givers.
the dream. And
I've
they're
had
givers.
that twice. And it has been amazing.
That's real nice.
Oh. Sorry. It's going somewhere in my mind.
Okay. Anyway, okay, so watch the boxing one. Watch Malice at the Palace. They also have, I haven't watched it yet, but they have a Caitlyn Jenner one.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. Anyway, and then also the Brainiacs, Sarah and Christy recommended Misha and the Wolves. That was on Netflix also. And that was about a woman who wrote a book about surviving the Holocaust when she was like 9 years old. Her parents were killed in the Holocaust, and she was adopted by these people. And then she wanted to find her parents. Like, she thought she could find them. And so she went out into the woods, and she met these wolves, and they, like, accepted her as one of their own. And it was this big bestseller.
Wolves?
Yes.
Accepted her as one of their own?
Yes. It was like a bestselling.
So they give her a little invite? Slip her a little RSVP,
right.
like little
dinner party
invitation to plus one.
You're invited.
You're like, no, sorry, lone wolf only. Just single.
Yes, but
No
so this was a best-selling book. It was translated into all these languages. But then the translations were different, and so people started being like, wait a minute. And then they found out that this was all a big fat lie.
What? She didn't really get accepted by wolves?
No, which you'd think we would have realized earlier.
Yeah,
I was
almost
like sometimes when
so they didn't slip her an invite under the door? Shocker.
I think sometimes when your lies are fantastical like that it's almost like more believable.
Yes.
Because you think, well, who's going to make that up?
Who's going to make that?
Well,
Right.
apparently Misha is.
Oh, my God. So weird. Pathological liars like that.
Yeah, and then they had to answer the question, like, because her parents really did die in the Holocaust, so they were like, she was a victim.
Yeah.
But
yeah, are we mad about it?
they were like, yeah, we should be, and here's why: because you're creating a sense of doubt about all these actual survivors who did live through these horrible things, and so now it puts everything into question.
But where's the doubt come in about the survivors?
Because she lied. So then they're saying, like, you're kind of like tarnishing all survivor stories. But
I don't think that's fair. If she's lying about something that's, and could it be a metaphor? To me, it kind of feels like that.
It could have been,
in a
but
way
she didn't
to
say it was.
Right.
I mean,
in a way,
she's
like,
wrong.
It feels just kind of like artistic expression. So the part that she fabricated that they don't like is that she did not go into the woods and did not befriend wolves.
Everything about the story other than her parents dying was a lie. Like, she was just adopted by her other relatives. It wasn't like strangers, and she never ran away, and she never tried to find her parents, and she never was adopted by wolves.
Oh.
So, like, all of it was fiction.
Okay.
But she is somebody who experienced the trauma of her parents being killed at a very young age, which is very sad. But that doesn't, like, give you some sort of permission to make millions off of.
You can't pitch it as the truth.
And nobody would have bought it.
Because I can
if they
see
knew.
it as a coping strategy.
Yeah.
I understand that. But you can't then picture. It just reminds me of that, what's his name, James Fry, Million Little Pieces thing.
That was a real scandal.
I read that book and I really believed him.
Did he ever parse out, like, what was true and what wasn't? Or do we just have to guess?
I don't know. I think at the time I was just, like, not having any. I just didn't want to.
People
really
were
loved
mad.
the book.
Everybody that read it was, like, transformed by it.
It was so good. Yeah.
What was it that was so good about it?
I don't even remember. You know what it was? It felt very honest. Like, it felt...
That's awful.
Holy fuck, I can't believe I just said that. I just realized what I said as soon as I said it.
No wonder you felt betrayed.
I didn't even... that makes sense. I didn't even connect the two things in my head. As soon as I said that, it wasn't until I saw your reaction where I was like, wait a sec. That could be why. Because it felt like...
Someone,
it
like,
had to do with
bearing
somebody
your
going
soul.
to rehab, and and it feels like if that person can be that broken, I can too. And then when it feels not fake or not real, it then makes you go like, am I not allowed to then?
Yeah, like you feel it's the feelings about the feelings. You have shame or whatever for believing and for investing in this lie.
Right.
Right. And that, remember when Oprah had him on after and she was like, having none of it.
Yes, she was like, tisk, tisk, finger wag, shame on you.
I don't think she should have done that. Like, I didn't like the public shaming of it. But I know why she's mad.
Yeah.
That was awesome, though.
That was awesome. Man.
Okay, moving on. I mean, also, let me see. Oh, you got to watch Nuclear Family. That was on HBO as well.
What's that?
That was about these two leses.
Oh, this is so fun.
Susie's movie reviews.
Yeah. Sarah cancels her plans for the weekend.
These leses that fell in love and wanted to start a family, and it was back in the 70s or something, and they needed donor. And so they went to these gay guys that would do it without, and they had a contract that was like, no rights, but no responsibility. You're just a sperm guy.
Yeah.
And then everything was good. And they had these two daughters, two different dads. And then like the kids get to school age and then, you start hearing like, well, who's my dad? We have two moms, but no dad. And then they said, well, there's this person and he helps create you, but whatever. And then, so then the kids started to show interest and they wanted pictures and then they wanted to meet them. And then, the guys are willing and they meet them, but then they start falling in love with their children, which is a totally normal thing to do.
Right.
And
you
then
see yourself reflected in another person. Come on.
It would be very hard to not become attached or whatever. So then it's about this custody battle that ensues as a result.
Oh, no.
And my best friends, the Leses, they have two kids.
They have a great relationship.
And so I kept thinking about them when I was watching it.
Yeah,
and thinking,
that's what I was thinking of.
Whose side am I on? Like, who am I rooting for? And it's so complicated. And
it's so complicated.
I mean, there's no real villain or anything. It's just sort of like human relationships are complicated. And especially when you can't have a baby the old-fashioned way, there's just like a lot of things that can go wrong.
Mm-hmm. A lot.
So I recommend that.
Oh, gosh, that's really interesting.
Thank you, Sarah. Another thing that's very interesting is how I am on a probiotic journey to like get my gut, healthy.
You need that, Suze.
Thank you.
I am happy that this is very important. We got to take your gut health into
for real.
Control.
And so like, I eat yogurt and I make kimchi and, I'm trying to do other stuff. And then I found this company that makes these delicious rye chips and bread and it's...
Oh, I'm so glad we're talking about this.
It's so good, right? Uprising Foods. Holy heck.
I didn't... there's something I love about being surprised. Like,
Sarah gets surprise packages sometimes.
Yeah, and having no expectations, being like, what's the big deal? Okay, so you're going to make...
Really
those
yummy.
Fucking chips.
Yes. I eat them with brie. Don't tell anybody.
They're so good.
They're delicious. You know how like when you get Chex Mix and then you only want those like rye, whatever they are? It's like that, but a whole bag of them.
So good. Oh, it's so good.
They have 2 net carbs per serving, 6 grams of protein, 9 grams of fiber. And it's that prebiotic, probiotic scenario where they're like putting all the stuff in there that will help your gut and it's delicious. And I say thank you.
Yes. Like I get to have the munchies and chow down on.
And feel good about it.
Yes.
Uprising is offering our listeners $10 off the starter bundle that includes 2 superfood cubes and 4 packs of those freedom chips to try. Go to uprisingfood.com/braincandy and the discount will be automatically applied at checkout. That's UPRISING food.com/braincandy to get $10 off your first purchase of the starter bundle. Do it.
Yeah. What I love about this is I'm a big fan of making small changes to make like small tweaks and like things that you can do to adjust your diet, your health, whatever, to have, because like I said, I'm not getting any younger over here, and I need to like, you have to like,
yeah, but it has to be doable. That's what I'm agreeing with you. Yeah,
small thing, like just swap it out. You want some chips? Just have that. Just swap it out. Trade for trade. You want some? Just try different bread. Oh my gosh, that's all you have to do. It's not like adding anything.
Yeah,
I love that.
I do too, and it's not like removing anything.
Which is very hard. Don't take my chips away. Just give me ones that are good for me. Right. Don't take away my bread. Just make it probiotic and help my gut.
You will love it, you guys. Okay. Yeah. This was okay. Oh, I did read a really great article about those blue cookie tins, Dansk. Shortbread cookies.
Yes,
it's
yes.
Like a metal.
Oh, I'm so familiar.
Yeah. So how are you familiar?
They now hold all of my sewing stuff?
Yes.
Yes.
This
you mean my craft containers?
Was about. The article.
The whole buttons?
Yes. Yes. The New York Times did an article about the Dansk shortbread cookie tins and how everyone puts their sewing stuff in there.
Yes.
And it's generational. Like my grandma did it, then my mom did it.
I actually am getting goosebumps. Like chills thinking about opening up those tins.
That's special. So, like, did you get that from your grandma or mom, or did you just decide on your own?
I got that from my grandma. It was definitely, my mom was a wardrobe stylist, so she had so much sewing stuff. There were, like, specific, it was almost like, it looked like a tackle box. Like, it had multiple, she was,
right.
That's
she
her
was
job.
More of a professional.
She was a professional. But grandma had the cookie tins. But here's the thing. I fucking love those cookies.
Oh, me too.
They are my favorite, and every year when they come out, I just, in the same way that I get excited about Halloween being over and I get the sale Halloween stuff, I am equally excited about the after Christmas basically giving them away.
Yes, I got a big one last New Year.
Right? Like for $1. They're taking and why I get those is because I do need tins and boxes for like all the random crap shit I have. It would cost me more to go to, I don't know, wherever and buy a metal tin.
Yeah.
To put my stuff in. If I go buy that, it's going to be $3 at Michael's. If I get my, December 30th sale stuff, it's going to be 99 cents for the whole box.
They didn't
I get cookies.
In the article, I don't think they addressed why the company chose this packaging, because to me it seems like not efficient cost-wise. Like that is an expensive package.
It's genius to me.
So do you think that was their intention, or do you think they thought it was just the best box for their cookies?
I think maybe how old is the company?
I think it's really old.
Really old. Okay, I bet when it started, that was how it came. And then it was one of those things where this is traditional, this is just how we've always done it. And then maybe somebody who had, the understanding of marketing recognized why there was benefits to having something that is so recognizable that you don't even have to say the brand. We don't even have to know how to pronounce it. But we all know exactly what cookie you're talking about. We all know exactly what tin you're talking about.
Because it's kind of
we're going to buy them.
When we talked about the tote bags, how companies want you to get this free tote bag because then you're like a billboard wherever. Right. And it's kind of like that where that's branding.
Total branding.
Year round.
And then everybody, it plants it in your head. There's an association,
Mm-hmm.
I remember my grandma had ones. It wasn't the blue tin, but it was ones that looked like an English phone booth.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the red.
Does this ring a bell?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it was it looked like the phone booth and that's the one that I have in my mind of grandma.
That's so nice.
Yeah.
The article did include other packaging that people reuse, like the Cool Whip container. You probably never had that because you're not white trash, but
I don't never had Cool Whip ever.
Well, I don't even know if I've actually had Cool Whip, but my grandma would put leftovers in the Cool Whip container, and then you'd take that container home on Thanksgiving or whatever.
Oh, we had containers full of. It was always Trader Joe's bruschetta.
Yours was like high end.
It was hippie food. Like my mom, I was thinking about that the other day. I was like, I cooking dinner or whatever I was making. I'm like thinking about how like I don't even have any processed food like in my whole house, and I don't have. It's like not what I go to. And,
not even like a bad. Well, you have the chips, the Uprising.
I was thinking
but like,
how
do you have like normal chips?
No. I have nothing that is. I don't have a single processed food. Like there's absolutely nothing in my house.
You need an emergency box of Ritz.
I do.
Because like every house should
it's
have
always
that.
an emergency.
Yeah, that's so true.
And I told Susie one time I stayed at Susie's house I don't know, I was like house sitting or watching the cat or something like that. And I smoked a little weed and, I was hanging out and definitely got the munchies. And Susie does have, I'm talking about you like you're not here. Susie does have one of those houses where she's got.
I like having stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
You have snacks on snacks. I told her, I'm like, thank God you don't record the footage, the cam, cam footage because security cam. I would love to count how many trips I made to go get little handfuls of the Skittles or M&Ms that were in those. I think they were M&Ms at the time. It was right after we had the Brain Candy meetup. Yeah. So you had all the big jars of candy.
Yes.
Oh my God. Oh, I should have just got one big trip, just one handful. No. I was like, I'll take 3 at a time.
Okay, let's say you're at home, though, and you have that, like, more limited options in terms of, like, naughtiness.
Yeah. There's none.
And you smoke a doob.
Yeah.
Then what's, like, your go-to craving? Like, what do you want to eat at that time?
If I had it in my refrigerator? Or
like,
what do I eat?
I wish I had Fritos.
I'm a big fan of popcorn.
Yeah, good one.
I can go because I also, a lot of it, I remember a long time ago you asked me what my favorite ice cream was, and I answered frozen yogurt, and you were like, what? That's not an answer to what's your favorite ice cream. And I said, well, the feelings of guilt that I've since cured this. I have relieved myself of the burden of these emotions, but the guilt that comes with eating the ice cream is so intense that I don't even enjoy it. So I'll have the thing that's so I won't allow myself to eat food that's really crappy for me because the guilt of that, is not fun for me. I just think about, remember when I was like pregnant for half a second and I ate McDonald's and then I had to pull over and I called you crying and told you I poisoned my baby?
Yes.
It's ridiculous. So I'm like, it gives me too much stress to think, because that's the fucking crap that my mom, planted in my head when I was little. She's like, blue dye number, whatever is going to kill you. All of this is poison. And, I had that thought the other day as I was cooking breakfast. I'm like, I cannot, not one time in my childhood did my mom ever buy a bag of Doritos or bag of not one time ever. I've never had Oreos in our house growing up. Never.
Child abuse.
It feels like that. Not one time. So I was thinking, I'm like, why don't I, how come I don't just have some of that? I'm like, well, because this wasn't modeled behavior. This wasn't what I saw. It doesn't feel like what I should have.
Yeah, the transgressive nature of the way people see food it gets internalized.
Yes.
From your childhood. I cannot do it. I mean, we talked about Peg earlier about how she's obsessed with skinniness and being small.
That must have been so hard with all of that food as available.
Yeah, that's what's weird though, because she would make chocolate chip cookies every day. This was her routine.
How are you not 500 pounds?
But it's like that mukbang thing where the ideal is if you can eat whatever you want and still be.
But how is that a thing?
Right. It's not, really.
It's not. There's some disordered eating in there.
Yeah, for sure. But, I mean, if I had the munchies, I would want something. Like, Sarah, I don't know how you live like this.
What's interesting? I make sure that I am selective about what kind of weed I buy, too. And I get kinds that don't have as much of the munchy effects. Because there are certain things that, Shout out to the strain Orange Tangy for having being the only strain that has one of the only strains that has a, you know how there's like CBD and THC. There's another one. There's some other one. They're different. A few of these different kinds that has effects that counteract the munchies.
Wow.
Yeah. So that one is
like,
the jam.
That's like seedless watermelons. Like we're done. You've done
We're
it.
done. You've
That's the ideal.
So,
okay. The other ideal is being able to ship stuff right from your house. Am I right?
Yes. Oh, shout out to stamps.com for basically supporting my online
auctioneer
open market
career.
auctioning sales because all of that was shipped easy breezy
lickety
from my
split.
couch.
That's what's great about stamps.com. If you haven't tried it, it is friggin' time because it brings the services of the post office and UPS right to your house or office. You just print out the postage to anywhere in the world for any weight or whatever, any letter, and then you put it in the mailbox and off it goes. You don't have to go anywhere.
My mail carrier also told me, he was like, I can take however, because I have a tiny mailbox, and I had a whole bunch of packages, and I was like, hey, can you take these? Like, and he's like, oh yeah, whatever you got, I can take anytime. In fact, let me give you a box for it, or like a bin for it.
Wow, VIP,
and I think he was kind of flirting with me, so that doesn't come with the stamps.com.
Yeah, that is not standard, but it is so convenient, and it does save you money. I promise you will love it. There's like a rate advisor tool to tell you like the best deal.
I saved like $40 on shipping your birthday thing because it was like, hey, you should send it
this other way.
UPS, and there you go.
Save time and money with Stamps.com. There's no risk. And with our promo code BrainCandy, you get a special offer that includes a 4-week trial plus free postage and a digital scale. No long-term commitments or contracts. Just go to Stamps.com, click on the microphone at the top of the homepage, and type in BrainCandy. That's Stamps.com, promo code BrainCandy, Stamps.com. Never go to the post office again. We have a guest.
Oh, I love a guest.
I was very excited to have this fellow on. His name is Jay Bakker, and he is the son of Jim and Tammy Faye.
I've been waiting for this.
He is my buddy, and I really love him.
I love this.
If you're not familiar with Jim and Tammy Faye Bakker, which you ought to be.
Yeah, I'm like, what?
I mean, they're cultural.
You know who they are if you saw them.
Touchstones, yeah.
Yes.
They were televangelists in the 80s. They may have started earlier, but they became very famous because of their work on television, spreading the gospel, but also because Tammy Faye was a real character, and she wore tons of mascara, and she was just
so much
Midwestern. She had this like, hi, this is Monica Erickson type of accent, and she was just a caricature of a real person, but she was real.
Yes.
And anyway, there's a new movie coming out called The Eyes of Tammy Faye, where Jessica Chastain plays Tammy Faye.
Oh my! I've heard it and I've heard Jessica Chastain does an amazing job.
Yes, and he said that like it humanized her. It wasn't about being a villain, and
it's the opposite of the Alanis Morisette documentary.
Yes, and she was never convicted of anything. She never went to jail. Her husband Jim did. He went to jail and got into trouble for money stuff. But she never did. And what I really love about her, though, is that she loved everyone. And she is kind of what Christianity ought to be in that regard. Yeah. She loved the gays.
And didn't she love the gays?
She loved the gays.
Yeah.
And you can see how she became like a gay icon, too, because she's very glamorous and she's very
all that mascara.
Funny. Yeah.
Come on. Of course, she did need some drag queens. She could have helped her with the lashes.
Yeah,
I feel like if
really
she would have discovered strip lashes instead of mascara.
It was like early on.
Yeah.
But she also went on the Surreal Life. I mean, she was
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
Yeah. Like she wasn't sort of like the typical where they're like anti-secular pop culture. She was just embraced everything and everybody. So anyway, I wanted to talk to him about what it was like to experience that scandal and having your parents become a punchline for decades. I mean, they're still referred to in this comical, cruel way. And it's not, hey, he didn't do it.
Right.
And I just imagine that it's been real difficult for him. And I wanted to find out more about his faith, if he is a believer. what that journey's been like for him. So I was happy to get to talk to him. So welcome to the show, Jay Bakker.
Yes.
Jay Bakker. Thanks for letting me harass you and make you come on my show.
You're welcome. Thanks for harassing me
so much.
Thank you.
You're one of my favorite people in all the world.
Oh, stop it.
No, I'm dead serious.
Say that.
Are you joking? Oh my
No, you always
gosh.
say really lovely things. You always say very nice things. I appreciate it.
Oh, let me make myself clear, because you're such a special person. And I remember I interviewed you like 6 years ago, and I was so nervous because I just think the world of you. And you were so lovely and so smart and so fun. And so now that everybody's chatting about your family again, I was like, I got to have this guy on and we got to like discuss, because my God, you have a weird life, Jay.
Yeah, no, it is a really weird life. Well, and I was excited. I was really excited about this interview because I follow you, and, I send you DMs every now and then. And I because so much of your stuff makes me laugh so much. Like, some of the stuff is like hilarious.
Well, I feel like since you and I mean, your life is so big and weird, but in a lot of ways, you represent an experience that a lot of us had growing up in the 80s with a very specific brand of evangelicalism. Mm-hmm. And so I just feel like we have a similar sensibility about that stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm always barking up your tree, and like, it just is nice to have somebody that understands what a weird upbringing that was for just a normie like me, but yours was on the bigger level. So I saw last week you went to the premiere of The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
I did.
And I want to know how you're feeling about all of this shenanigan going on.
I'm overwhelmed. I literally found a psychoanalyst to go to as soon as I realized this film was coming out.
That was what led you to do that?
It was. Honestly, I kind of wish I could send the bills to Searchlight or Disney. I think they own them now. Wish Mickey Mouse would pay for my therapy.
Mickey Mouse should pay for all of our therapy.
Yes. But so I've known about it, and I've talked a lot to Jessica Chastain. We've become friends through this, which is so bizarre.
Good. Yeah.
So weird. Because I don't have a lot of friends as it is, and then much less someone who's a movie star. But she's genuine, and she's a human being, and not what I imagined at all. But yeah, so I saw the movie actually a few months earlier in LA. They invited me out for a screening, and I took my best friend Pete Rollins with me. And I said, because I need some fresh eyes on this thing, man. I'm like, because how I'm going to see it is completely different than how everybody else is going to see this.
Totally.
Film. And he's a philosopher. Like, he's a
I love that guy.
Yeah. So we went and saw the film together, and it was wild. It was done really well. I mean, there's things I could nitpick about it, and just sets and the timeline and things like that. But, they're crushing like 30 to 40 years within like an hour and a half, 2 hours is a bit, they have to do a lot.
Tall order, yeah.
But yeah, so I saw it, but then going to the premiere was a bit different. They had a pink carpet, which was cool. But I was so out of it that I didn't even realize until like 2 days later that the carpet was pink.
I'm sure it was a lot to take in for you.
It was a lot to take in, but yeah, so I went, and I had a date there, and that was great because Lori was really awesome to kind of just help me through it. I got to meet Vincent, the guy who played Jerry Falwell, and I've always really liked him a lot. And so he was the only actor I asked to meet, because he was like in the cell and creeped me out, and like Law and Order, he kind of creeped me out. And
you love a creepy dude, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah. And what's funny is years ago, right after my first divorce, I had met this really beautiful woman, this beautiful Italian woman that I was dating. And we were at the drugstore, and he was in the drugstore too, and she was getting a refill of something, and her last name was Palucci. He's like, Palucci, huh? Italian. I kind of had to be like, hey, you kind of hit on my girlfriend.
Yeah, right.
10 years ago. So that was kind of, I didn't tell him that, but that was hilarious. So he is creepy. No, he's really
right.
He's been really nice. But yeah, it was overwhelming. I had to walk out of the theater a few times because seeing it with people is different.
How
you
so?
know, because of their reactions. You know, and like when it was just me and Pete, you know, I could sit there and, you know, some of Jessica got my mom's hand motions down and her movements down so much that sometimes that would just, I'd be like, you know, get a little teary eyed. And, but I could just sit there and be that way with Pete, you know, and I didn't expect Pete to get emotional, but as soon as my sister's song hit at the end of the movie, even Pete got emotional. I was like, holy shit, you know.
I cried at the trailer, Jay. I did.
Pete's
God.
one of those people that you want to like collect his tears because they might cure some random disease because they're so rare. But yeah, so, you know, I got up and walked out a couple times, and then Lori was like, you know, we can leave. We don't have to stay. She's like, I can see this anytime. I was like, oh yeah, okay, we're adults, we're allowed to do that. And so I guess there's one scene where Ted Koppel's interviewing my parents, and some people laughed because my dad has like this Freudian slip, and people laughed. And I remember that night so vividly as an 11-year-old. And my parents, that's when I saw my parents as really human beings for the first time.
Right.
Was that night. And they were so broken. Like I've never seen, honestly, I've been working in some type of church or ministry. I don't use those words anymore, but for almost 25, I mean, I've been in it most of my life and working in it for, 94. So you can do the math on that. 26 years, maybe. Mm-hmm. The same thing. And they were still two of the most broken people I'd ever seen. And, you know, I've done funerals, all sorts of things. And so they were really broken to pieces. My dad was like, had almost gone catatonic and was in fetal position on the couch most of the time, you know, and my mom's just pure life. So she's just like, I'm just trying to live. Let's go to Marshall's. Let's go to the mall, you know, let's try to live, you know, everything's falling apart. And,
God.
Really amazing. Like all these stories, like I really wish that the writers would have talked to me. I talked to the actors, but I really wish the writers would have talked to me because there's truth is way more fascinating than fiction, especially when it comes to my folks. But people laughed at that one scene. And for me, that was such a moment of trauma because it was like a little part of me, like the kid in me died a bit, you know, and not many people have that very moment set in their mind. And so I was like, yeah, let's go, you know, and we got up and left. But it was really nice because all of a sudden I get a text from Jessica, like, I just saw you leave the theater. Are you okay?
Oh,
you know, like,
my God. That's nice.
How cool she is, you know. Did you ever see that movie, Say Anything?
Yeah.
You know, where he holds the speakers over and the girl who he's dating, like the valedictorian, and she's talking about him. And she's like, you know, we went to this party and, you know, he got made the guy who had to keep everybody's keys at the party so he couldn't hang out with her. She's like, but he kept checking in on me, you know, and she's like, that was just so lovely. And so like Jessica that night was like my Lloyd Dobler. Like she kept sending me texts, making sure I was okay.
That's very
even
sweet.
At the after party, she didn't realize I was there. She's like, are you okay? Everything going okay? I'm like, yeah, I'm sitting talking to the director. She's like, oh, you're here. I'm so happy.
Yeah.
But it was so funny because it was such an emotional moment. Like when I got to the after party and it was like on the rooftop of this New York hotel and they had I've been sober for 25 years, I guess. I walk in and they have because of Diet Cokes, my mom always drank Diet Cokes. They have this tray just full of Diet Cokes. And the lady's like, would you like a drink? I was like, yes, I need a drink. You know, grab a Diet Coke. I'm like finding the dark corner. Yeah.
Right.
find a dark corner to go kind of sit in and just kind of be on my own. Because another weird thing about it was hearing people talk about the film. Like there was people next to me and they were like talking about it and talking about my family. Yeah. So I had to I finally just got up and walked over and said, hey,
oh my God,
you guys are talking about my life. I mean, I know we just saw the movie. I'm like, but this is my life. If you have questions, come over and talk to me. If not, if you don't mind, just moving down a couple seats. Cause I honestly just don't want to hear it right now.
That's
but yeah. And they had the baby blue prop phones on all the tables. I stole one.
It's the right thing to do.
Yeah. I mean, I figured that was, that's what I got for being being in the movie or being a part of the movie. I wasn't in the movie, but, so yeah, that was kind of it in a nutshell.
Why do you think the writers didn't consult you?
I met the writer when I was there and I told him, man, I really wish you would have given me a call, and he almost felt like he came off this sense of like superiority to me. Like, and I feel like there's like an unspoken rule in Hollywood about getting families involved in things and not getting them involved in things. Okay. And,
but you lived it.
I mean, I did live it. And so I don't know. I think maybe it was fear. Maybe they're afraid you're going to get mad and sue them or something like that. And, because I thought it would have been nice if they had hired me and my sister.
I thought they did.
No, we didn't get any money. But it would have been nice if they would have hired us to put input into the film. But that's just, that's not how Hollywood works. But maybe, who knows, maybe one day somebody will do like a series and me and my sister can have input on that. Me and Pete Rollins and Helen work. They have a group called Magician's Niece, a production group. And we are working with Vice right now to do a documentary about my mother.
Good.
And father. So we're doing that right now. I'm actually flying out to Belfast next month because it's all out of the UK that we're doing this stuff.
That's very exciting. And I think that would be fantastic. But if you had been consulted for this film, what would you do? What would you do differently?
Oh my gosh.
A lot.
I mean, Jessica's performance is so wonderful and Andrew really humanized my dad and I really appreciated that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, just like there's like a story, like there's a scene where these kids are making fun of my mom and she hands them like pictures of herself, like, hey, anybody want pictures? But this true story is even better is that it was at a mall that this happened. And she walked up to these kids and said, hey, are you guys, if you're going to make fun of me, you got to get to meet me first. And then she's like, listen, Marie Callender's is upstairs. Are you guys hungry? Oh. If you want, I'll get you whatever you want and we can just sit and talk. And my mom took these like 4 like little skater kids who were making fun of her to Marie Callender's and sat with them and bought them lunch and sat and talked to them for like an hour. I wasn't born in 1980 as much as I wish I was. I was born in 75.
Did they say 1980?
Yeah. Well, and I had my mom having the affair with, I don't know if it was a complete affair or not. I don't know if it was consummated or not. But with that producer, Gary Paxton, when she's pregnant with me and her little, like she's straddling him when her water breaks. Now that didn't happen because I was born in 75. The thing with her and Gary Paxton did happen in 1980. You know what I mean? So they put those two things together, which I just don't understand how that makes sense.
No.
I probably would have had them talk a little bit less religious when they weren't on camera because my parents didn't talk like that.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I think I would have also probably, like when my mom is looking at fur coats and her grandma's like, can we afford this? Or her mom, my grandma, donations are coming in. And my mother and father would never say anything like that. Like they were paid to do what they did. You know what I mean? It wasn't based on donations ever. Their payments came from those donations, but also people don't know that my parents gave 100% of all their royalties to PTL. Mm-hmm. So all the album royalties, all the book royalties, everything went to PTL. So they gave about almost 7 times what they made back to PTL. I think it was like the last few years, it was like $8 million that they could have earned off books. And that's why some pastors are like, I don't get paid. I just get my book money. I'm like, yeah, of course you do. Because it's like 3 times, 4 times.
That's the good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. That's what So, and a lot of people don't know that and don't care to know that, but because everybody has this perception in their head that, the story that they tell themselves that help them sleep at night and make the world be in some sort of order. But it's just that the truth is really stranger than fiction. So I would have made some of those things a little bit more clear. Like my parents never had giant pictures of themselves hanging up all over the house,
right.
They had like embarrassing pictures of us, me and my sister. The only
Maybe
time
it's
they would
better
have
they didn't include that.
a big picture of themselves hanging up is if somebody did that painted it for them,
right.
and that person might be coming over.
right. Get it out.
Isn't it funny though how people are like, I think you're going to really love this giant picture of you. I bet you get that sometimes.
They mean well. Bless their hearts. They do.
And it's nice. It's nice. I often sometimes give them to Pete and tell them that.
I'm sure he appreciates that.
Yeah. He's one day going to have a whole room dedicated to just me.
To what extent does because here's my understanding of your sort of trajectory. You were, in the public eye with your family, then all hell broke loose and everything changed. And then there was tons of trauma for you. And then eventually you got sober and, sort of righted your path. But like now, do you feel like it's all coming back and you have to relive the nightmare part again?
A little bit. And not so much like reliving the nightmare, but I mean, you do have to relive a lot of it. Like now that there's social media.
Yeah.
You have to deal with everybody's opinion, and most people just got their opinion from like watching the news or from rag magazines, or gossip or rumors and
just the punchlines, really.
Yeah. Punchlines or from Saturday Night Live or from, late night talk shows. I mean, my parents were huge. And so to have like the very like unsensitive people of social media comment. So I've like cut off the comments on most of my Facebook posts. I unfollowed almost everybody on Twitter. I think I only follow 50. I think you're one of the people.
I know. I made the cut. I checked.
You made the cut.
I was real worried about it.
I mean, I think I cut out like 10,000 people. That was the most hardest thing I'd done. So I'm a little bit more careful with that stuff right now. I think it's hard too when you study really hard and work really hard to do your own work, and you finally feel like, well, maybe I'm not as, I mean, any interview I do, my parents are always mentioned, but maybe I'm not as identified by being their son, and then this happens, and you're like, oh, well, here we go again.
Yeah.
So.
Do you feel resentful about that?
No, because I feel like it's the cards I've been dealt.
Yeah.
And so you kind of just have to use the cards that you've been dealt to the best of your ability. And so if it helps me get out the message of grace or not scapegoating one another or, armchair philosopher, armchair theologian, get out there and write books and do things like that, then I try to use it to the best of my ability, and so I get to talk to people about, the books I'm reading and the things that I'm thinking and encourage people to work better together and argue well together, so that's the bright spot of that is that, you try to just make it work for your work.
Make the best of it.
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people are very curious about your faith, if you have any. And so how do you describe what you believe to people?
Well, usually, I mean, people who listen to my stuff don't ask me, thank God, because that's a hard question.
You can skip it. We could skip it.
No. What was the experiment where the cat is in the box and it's alive and dead at the same time? What was that experiment called?
I don't know that one.
You don't? Okay. It's really famous.
Sounds
I always
awesome.
forget the guy's name. And so supposedly, like, they poison this cat in this box.
Okay.
But supposedly the cat is alive and dead all at the same time. It's a very philosophical thought, but it's a scientific study.
Huh.
Anyway, I got to remember the guy's name. It's just escaping me right now. But that's how I feel about God. So I believe it's not like I'm agnostic. I used to say I was an agnostic Christian. It's not that I'm agnostic, but I move in a place where I believe God is dead and alive within the same point. So I have faith and I don't have faith. And what that is the dialectic. And so I subscribe to the dialectics of life and the dialectics of, I guess, for lack of a better word, religion. I've really held on to that word religion a little bit more lately. I used to hate it. And I used to be like, I'm spiritual, not religious, you know. But now, like, spiritual seems to be like, yeah, I don't
That's
like
gross
that
too now.
So I'm just going to go with religion and something that I practice, and then I read and I study, and so I mean, Paul Tillich thought this way, so it's not anything crazy. I mean, Tillich was probably the most important philosopher, theologian of the 20th century. So it's nothing new. I mean, there's always been the death of God theology since the 60s, I guess, even probably before then. But I live within a tension, within the contradictions. And we all have contradictions, and it's learning to live within those contradictions. And what can we uncontradict in a way? And what contradictions do we have to accept within life? And so I live within that contradiction, and I'm very comfortable there. But I don't know how. I mean, I really would like to write a book about it, because in order to explain it, it would probably require that much time.
Well, you're a very talented writer. I hope you do create that book, because
thank you.
I love everything you put out. It's wonderful.
Well, I have
So
dyslexia, so I always work with co-writers. But the great thing about working with co-writers is it's like, you know, like Lennon and McCarthy. You know, you're carving this thing up, and you have it, and then they come back and they go like, well, no, I don't know. What about this part? And it becomes this really, but reason I always have the co-writer's name on there and I don't use ghostwriters is because I want people with dyslexia and with learning disabilities to know, like, you also can do this stuff. Like,
That's
you know,
so
I'm
good.
all self-taught. I'm autodidact is the word. You know, I dropped out of high school, got my GED. I've gone to seminary to take classes, but I've never officially gone to seminary or Bible college. I just buy books and buy the books they read. And read them like insanely. So, you know,
I feel
now
like
I'm to read Hegel, and that's almost impossible.
But your whole life too has been like one big training ground. So you can do it. You can circumvent the system.
Yeah, it's interesting. And that's another thing is I have a lot of friends who are extremely smart and talented who should be writing books and aren't able to do it. So I do, you know, when you count that, like the cards I've been dealt, you know, realizing that, you know, living through hell has given me some bit of a voice. That
what do you think prevented you from like throwing the baby out with the bathwater in terms of religiosity or whatevs?
The concept of grace, the idea of loving your enemy as yourself, those two things drew me in because it was so different from what I had heard growing up. Now, I saw my parents practice it, but I'd never heard it talked about.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I started to study and do my own like deconstruction of the Bible, what I realized is that was the essence of the Bible,
Right.
especially the New Testament. And that it was good news. It was actually good news.
It is good. It is good news.
And a lot of it comes from the Apostle Paul, who a lot of people don't like. But that's based on like the pastoral epistles, really, which I believe are forgeries and should be removed from the Bible. If it was up to me, I would have those books taken out because I think those were put in to try to corral Paul's message. So those things just, there's something about that, you know, that love, that Corinthians 13, you know, love never gives up, never loses faith, always hopeful, endures through every circumstance. And what drew me to Hegel actually wasn't his philosophy originally. It was reading a book about Hegel by a guy named Todd McGowan, where he talked about Hegel used to just put Christianity with all the other religions, but then something happened where Hegel connected with the concept of love within Christianity. and said, there's something different here than all other religions to me. And this love seems to be a little bit different. And that was what drew Hegel into Christianity. So for me, the love essence there, I mean, I think the best practice was probably Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I think he really practiced that well with how he would talk about his enemies. He would not even call them enemies. He would say they were victims of misinformation. And that's
I'm going to start calling them that.
Yeah. And it's kind of passive aggressive too.
Yeah,
really,
I kind of love it.
Very Minnesotan.
Right.
And, and he said, they're victims as well. And so when you start to think that way and see things that different way, the world becomes a different place. And I want to sit down with my enemies. That's why I can't stand cancel culture. I really believe in restoration. I believe in accountability. I'm not saying no accountability. But I also believe that grace is a type of anarchy that moves within so many different areas that it never makes anybody happy. And so whatever system we build, grace is going to be anarchy within that system. Grace does not allow a place for an asterisk. And everybody wants to give it an asterisk. Woke people want to give it an asterisk. Conservative people want to give it an asterisk. Everybody has got fears of this concept of grace. And so those are the things that really have kept me involved with Christianity.
I love that. I can't quit smiling because everything you say is just like so refreshing and exciting, because it is radical and it is revolutionary. And you were able to tap into that despite all the garbage and the noise that happened in your life. And I think that's a pretty inspiring thing to be. So I love it.
I'll give you just honestly though, like a few weeks before I really started looking into it, it was a friend of mine who challenged me to do it. Because I really thought God was a piece of shit. I thought God had made a mistake and that mistake was me because I couldn't, you know what I mean? Like I was like, I can't do anything that I'm supposed to do. Like, okay, I couldn't stop drinking until I realized it didn't matter if I drank or not to God. It was the temptation of it all that like, oh, God hates me if I drink. Oh, I got to drink, and then it was like, God doesn't care. And then I was like, maybe driving drunk and sleeping on the front door of my house and following women into bathrooms is not a good thing.
It's not ideal.
Yeah. So, being creepy is not great. It was really revolutionary to my brain. It was like, I can't believe this is true.
That your feelings about cancel culture are informed by your experiences?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. It's not, not just my experiences, but also by the works that I read. If you read any great, if you read a lot of great philosophy and you read a lot of great theologians, you realize that they don't allow room for that because you're having to do, you're seeing humanity. If you read Freud, there's not this idea of this person's not going to, I'm not going to talk to this person. I have this great book there where Freud is trading letters with a pastor because Freud was an atheist. Everybody thought they couldn't work together. And they have these great letters of them trying to work together because this pastor wants to do psychoanalysis in his church. Because I know what it's like. And
what is it like?
To say that my parents weren't canceled, being a 45-year-old man and having people come on and say, your mother's a clown and a thief. And things like that to you. And I'm 45. My mother's dead. She died in 2007. This is something that happened in the 1980s. Or having a social justice person who's, fights for prisoners' rights, tweet something that says, I can't believe Jim Bakker is allowed to be on TV. After he was in prison and all this stuff, because now they are living into a contradiction, right? Where there's this complete lack of grace. Like Jim Bakker did his time. You might not like what he does now. I don't like what he does now. But the fact is, he served 5 years in prison. Right. When do you have enough piece of flesh? When do you have enough blood? When is there enough? So living in that is pretty awful because it's not just that person. Mm-mm. Because human nature is, as people will find a way, like, oh, because she's dead, so I can't tell her she's a piece of shit. Well, I'll find one of her kids, or God forbid, one of her grandkids, and I'll tell them that. God. So it's a toxic thing. It is the opposite of grace. Cancel culture is falling from grace.
When they're doing that, when they come to you and say something cruel in that way, what do you think motivates that? What does it do for them?
I think a lot of it's projection. I think it's their own pain. I think it's a coping mechanism. I think it's wanting to be heard. I also think it comes from their own experiences and their own hurt with the church. I mean, the church has been a very nasty place. And so by scapegoating my parents into that, it kind of gives them an image. It gives them something to be solid and to look at. Because when you just say the church, you're talking about millions of people all over the world. But when you have somebody to scapegoat and focus on, and here the thing was in the 80s, my parents weren't political at Heritage USA. They weren't conservative. I mean, and there's a scene in the movie where my dad's saying, well, we want to vote for Pat. My dad didn't care about Pat or George Sr. Both of them asked him to speak on their behalf. And he said, no, that's illegal. That's not how we do it at PTL. That, when my dad was asked to join the Christian Coalition, he said, no, that's not what we do. That's not how we see things. We're not about right or left. We're about humans. So my parents were very radical in those years. But unfortunately, a lot of the hate that's directed towards them, I think, comes from thinking like, well, they're just like Jerry Falwell, or they're just like Jimmy Swaggart, or, we just want something easy that we can sum up and point fingers at. And, I always, I've been challenging people lately, like, if you've gotten your opinion about someone from the press or from social media, you might want to hold that real lightly. Because there's something that you might not know about them. I mean, it's I even kind of find I find myself feeling sad for people who have like the mask meltdowns. They don't wear masks. The non-maskers. I wear a mask everywhere. I shower in my mask, but no, and they have these meltdowns and they're all like sheeple, and all this shit,
right, yeah.
But I kind of feel bad for them because I'm like, damn, this was a day where they just cracked, and everybody's got a video on camera on their phone. And like to have that, your moment in life, what most people know you for is for the moment you broke down is sad, because I bet you that person's probably pretty solid. I bet you they probably helped a lot of people. They probably saved people's lives with their words, but they just had enough, So it's funny. It's like, I always tell people, like, you don't have to do this. This is just, I'm like, if you want to follow the religion that I follow, which is Christianity, which I subscribe to, it says, don't judge. How you judge, you will be judged. So I try not to judge people. You don't have to do that, but that's why I found peace in my life. So I just don't like doing it. I don't buy into it. And I really believe that everybody deserves a second and third and fourth chance, Now, do I believe they don't need to be held accountable? No, I'm not saying that we just go, you killed 15 people, it's fine. I'm not saying that, or you raped someone, or you, whatever. I don't think that's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is that I think they do deserve a bit of healing, and they do deserve a bit of therapy, and they do deserve a bit of, us to not just use the scarlet letter. It's weird to me because I feel like so much of what I see progressives doing now reminds me so much of what conservative evangelicals did in the 80s and 90s.
Really?
Oh my gosh. Yes. They've got all this legalism on all these rigid rules of like, if you don't say things the right way, if you don't use the right words, you're done. You're in trouble. If you vote one way or you don't vote the other way, you're out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I saw pastors saying, liberal pastors saying, like, if your family voted for Donald Trump, you need to just let them be and leave them alone and not associate with them anymore.
Yeah.
And I'm going like, this is what the conservative church told people to do to their gay kids in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah.
Like, so basically, if the fruit of this is tearing families apart, I don't want any part of it, And when I see people so self-righteous about it, I mean, this one guy, the one person who's like, your mother's a clown and a thief and all this, I went and looked at his Facebook page, and it was like, I love Palestine, Black Lives Matter. It was like all this stuff is awesome, except Tammy Faye is a clown because she wore too much makeup. But it's like, it's okay to make fun of this woman and this person, so there's a double standard there as well. And it's not healing. And I think capitalism plays into it. You know, I think politics play into it. 'Cause honestly, I don't think there's really any difference between liberals and conservatives anymore, as far as in office, you know.
Oh, yeah.
But I mean, even if you watch the media, like, had Donald Trump killed had a bus bombed with 7 kids in it, we would all been like, oh my God, you know. But it happens under, what's our president's name?
Biden.
It happens under Biden's watch, and everybody's like, oh, well, they apologized, you know.
Yeah.
And so it's this double standard. And I just saw Christians live by that double standard for so long. And that's what drove me out of Christianity. That's what drove me away from it. And that's what caused me to have the message that I have. And so when I see people falling into that same, they've just traded one system for another, one rigid system for another rigid system. To me, that's dangerous, and it's just transference. And it's like, no, we want to change. We want to become new people. And that's what I love about Martin Luther King Jr. Is I really felt like he did that in a beautiful way, where he just, he sat down with the enemy. He had conversations with them and had hard conversations, where it's like we're afraid to have hard conversations. Like, we're not adults anymore. It's like we can't argue well anymore. And what I want to do is encourage people to argue well. Well, I might be triggered, or I might be this. Okay, well, don't argue right away. Maybe get some therapy, work out some stuff. And people, I don't have health insurance. Well, guess what? Either do I. I don't have health insurance right now either. And I'm having to see my therapy bill as kind of like I don't make a lot of money. It hurts me to have more money going out and coming in. But I see it as an investment, not just for my kids and myself, but also for my work and for how I relate to other human beings. And so I think we have to make sacrifices if we want to see the world change. If we want to see the world see the same, we'll continue to live in a way of binary thinking. And binary thinking is really horrible. And the funny thing is like, we're doing most of this like arguing and hatefulness on these millionaire apps that these millionaires have put together, on books that we read from billionaires apps, on these books that we read from a billionaire's store, on devices that we read from billionaires too, and we judge all these people. And then we justify the fact that half the stuff in our awesome phones are mined by children, in third world countries, so it's like we all have contradiction. It's just what level do we decide to be at ease with it, But what's better is rather than just having it in our unconscious, when we bring it to the conscious, we're able to work on it and deal with it and see that. And all of a sudden, everything doesn't become so black and white. And there's not like the bad guy twirling their mustache all of a sudden, What
is your advice for people like me and like you who are not ideologically synced with their parent or a family member? I imagine it's been a struggle because your dad and you do not share a lot of worldview points. So what the heck are we supposed to do, man?
At this point, my dad's not talking to me, and I don't know why.
What?
Yeah, so we're not really talking right now, but I still send him pictures of my kids all the time, and I'll send a message every now and then. But, I saw him 2 years ago during Christmas, and we had a conversation. We had a tough conversation. And at one point, I think I told him he was full of shit, and he got really mad, and then he calmed down, and we had the conversation. And I know I'm enough to kind of know where I can push and where I shouldn't push. But what was more important than even that conversation was my kids playing with his other grandkids, because my dad adopted 5 kids. And Latinos and and Latin and Latinos kids, and they're great, and they have kids now, and my kids opening presents and hugging grandpa and seeing grandpa, and when they don't have their grandma, and they love her because they see pictures of her all the time. Mm-hmm. But that was important to me for a lot of reasons, because I wasn't very close to my grandparents until my grandfather was the one I only got really close to, and that was at the end of his death, but end of his life. I mean, and there's something missing there. Mm-hmm. And I don't want my kids to miss that. And my kids don't have to worry about right now, aren't worried about politics and stuff. They might look back and be like, oh, grandpa said some crazy stuff. Or they might have been like, oh, he was making a lot of sense. Who knows? I don't know what the kids will grow into.
Yeah.
But that's not going to change the way I feel about my kids. I'm going to love my kids no matter what. So yeah, that was important. But also I'm the one who can say, Dad, this is why I don't think you should be talking about LGBTQ people. You know, and he had a while where he didn't mention LGBTQ folks at all because of our conversation.
Okay.
You know, I can talk to him about why I disagree with his politics. He's not a dumb man, but he is sincere and he really does believe the stuff that he says, you know, and so, and I feel like some of it feels a bit unhinged. But I'm the one voice of reason that can come into his life and say those things. So for me, I'd rather be able to be in his life and be that voice.
Right.
Than not, you know, and also I haven't walked in his shoes. Like, I don't know what it's like to wake up every day and feel like how many people hate you and know that you're hated, you know, and know that your life has been, you know, your life work was disgraced, you know, and I don't know what it's like to spend 5 years in prison, you know. I am very empathetic, but I can't necessarily empathize with some of those things because I just don't have a place for them. So I love my dad. I don't agree with my dad, but that's the thing is I don't think we have to agree with each other to love each other. And people always say, well, if you're questioning this or questioning that, or you're questioning my self-worth or my humanity, then we can't talk. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, but that's exactly when you should be talking to those people, because if they get to know you and get to hear your point, that might be what changes them, you know, because tough conversations work. When I was working with, Soul Force, which is a Christian organization that works for LGBTQ rights. You know, we met with Bill Hybels in this mega church in Chicago, and we met with a bunch of different mega churches, and we met with them and had a meeting. And one of the people that was there is a parent who lost their daughter who was attending their church, whose daughter took her life because she felt like God didn't love her, you know, and we're having really intense conversation. And this was a long time ago. Back then they really wanted a white guy's voice. And you know what I mean? Like, so I was able to be the bad cop and they were all the good cops. That worked out. You know, you leave and you feel like nothing's changed, but they dropped Exodus. And when Exodus said we've been dropped by this church, and the reason Exodus gave is like, we feel like Soul Force because they went in there and had this conversation.
Good.
You might not change everything, but you can lead to small changes that eventually will lead to bigger changes and help people think differently. And I think that's important. I think, you know, what's going to speak louder, like not talking to your family for the rest of your life, or the fact that you were the one who were like, I'm going to stick through this. I mean, when the Bible says love never gives up, so it doesn't even demand its own way. So it's not irritable and it keeps no record. You know, if I take these things as truths, you know, well, I don't think most people do. And I'm not saying it was handed down, written in by the hand of God. I'm just saying I take these as truths that I think work and actually make the world better, make my life better. Because I want to live a good life. I want to live well. I want to enjoy life. You know, I'm not like I want to be a martyr and just be beat up by all these people, you know? No, but it just fascinates me how humanity works and how humans work and how we can change.
Do you mind if I ask you some questions that people sent in?
Nope.
You got a lot. There were so many.
Oh, cool.
Like people are just chomping at the bit to talk to Jay. All right.
Oh, that's nice.
Okay. Let's see. Becca wants to know, what do you think are the biggest issues facing America today? It's like you're running for president.
That would be that would be a short bid. Canisters.
Never say never.
Yeah. Capitalism. Because it offers to fill the lack. Nothing fills the lack.
Yeah.
God doesn't fill the lack. but it says it will fill the lack. It makes these promises, and that the next product or the next item or the next house or even the next marriage, and I believe capitalism. If you look at like how capitalism started in America with slavery, and now pretty much people's working wages are getting very close to what it looks like slavery because people can't work a full work week and afford rent,
right?
Groceries and shampoo and deodorant and clothes. It's just we live in a country where people literally cannot live on the minimum anywhere. There's no houses for rent, no apartments for rent where you can make minimum wage. You have to have 2 or 3 jobs. We're starting to see capitalism fall apart with all the billionaires flying to space and doing all this stuff because they don't even give a shit. It's like fly to space or feed millions of people. I'm going to fly to space.
They don't even pretend to care. It's fascinating.
No, at least you have to give them that. At least they're not,
Yeah, they're not phonies.
Yeah. On to space, and it's all because of you.
Bethany wants to know if your dad saw the movie.
I don't think so, and I don't think he will.
No, I wouldn't expect that.
In a way, I wish I could sit down with him and explain like how Andrew Garfield humanized him. And I'm like, Dad, you do see humanity there, man. And my dad is a human being, just like everybody else. Honestly, I would not do the work I do today if it wasn't for my father, not just my mother. They were a team, and you didn't have one without the other. My dad taught me so much about loving and forgiving people who are my enemies, like literal enemies, like Jerry Falwell and all these people. And I saw him do it. And I remember telling him I thought he was insane and he was an idiot. And I saw him do it, and it changed my life. Wow. So I wish he would see it because I think it's very humanizing, but I think it would just be too hard for him to watch.
I can imagine that. Heather would like to know, and her name is Heather Williams Music, so I suspect she's a musical person. Your mom loved singing. What artist could you see your mom singing a duet with? That sounds nice.
Oh, that does sound nice. She was supposed to do, before he got canceled, a duet with Marilyn Manson, a Christmas song.
Lord of mercy.
Yeah, they became friends.
They did not.
Yes, my mom was a mom to everybody. One of my best friends was a Satanist. And his mom died in a bad car accident. And so he would come to my house for Thanksgiving and Christmas. My mom didn't care that he had giant pentagrams on his elbows or, all this.
I love her so friggin' much.
And we all hung out, and he called her mom, and so, for me, like, she would probably still consider doing it with Marilyn,
right.
With all the weird news that's come out about him. But they almost did a duet together. I don't know, like, she could do a duet with anybody.
Yeah, she could.
She loved to sing, and I think she sang with Johnny Cash once.
Ooh, that's cool.
Like, she went to a concert, and he brought her up on stage, and they did a duet. Unfortunately, I wasn't there because they told me it was country music, and I kicked myself every day for not going.
Hey,
I was like 9 or 10.
Yeah,
the country was just like, I know. I got to meet him once, but never got to see him play. I don't know. I don't even know who the hot artists are right now. I'm going to say Bono. Or no, Sinead O'Connor. Her and Sinead O'Connor.
Good choice.
Something about women who've been scapegoated.
I love that. And you're right. Harley Dean wants to know, do you see support from previous PTL folks who have deconstructed or shifted their own faith?
I see some who haven't deconstructed, who are still like
in it,
you're not going to vax me on their site, you know what I mean? But still come in and be like, oh, mate, buddy, we love you. We love your parents.
Okay.
Just thinking about you. We don't have to agree on everything, but we just want to let you know that we're thinking about you right now and stuff like, see, that's why people are different and complex. You can't just put them into, we are literally,
that's hard though.
When we put them into it's hard.
Yeah.
But life is hard.
Yeah.
Like when Jesus said, die to your flesh, he wasn't saying, don't go to rated R movies or listen to secular music. He's saying, love each other. this is the hard part, is loving each other. That's what Christianity, that's the hard part. That's the taking up the cross part. That's the dying to yourself part, is loving each other. It's not being celibate. It's not premarital sex. It's loving each other. So guess what, everybody? Anything worth doing takes effort.
We had, for a documentary club this past month, we did Pray Away, you know, about the gay conversion therapy and stuff. And one of the members was like, why do evangelicals focus so much on the gay thing and abortion? And I'm like, because loving your enemies is hard.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
And they don't want to focus probably on their own sexuality.
Well, that's definitely true.
You know, so, sexuality, like, that's one of the things I liked about the film, is that it showed my parents as sexual human beings. And I think sexuality is such a huge part of humanity and life. And to ignore it, I honestly, I think one of the biggest damages the church did in the late 80s, early 90s was this, like, the purity rings and things like that. You know, I've met, strangely enough, more women than men, but women who just, like, don't feel like they can have sex.
Yes.
Or they don't feel sexual at all, or they feel guilty about their sexuality, you know, and it's like, that's something that needs to be talked about and confronted. Like, I'm not a big, like, let's shit on the church and call it deconstruction, but I'm one to say, like, let's look and see some things that really went wrong. And I think how the church has handled sexuality and how the Catholic Church handles sexuality is horrific and needs to be talked about. Because sexuality is a powerful, beautiful, amazing thing. So there you go. I don't know if I answered it. Was that even that?
You did.
Okay.
Helen Rollins wants to know, are there any lessons about the way your parents were treated that we could learn today?
Pretty much what we've been talking about is not scapegoating people, not writing people off. Do you remember when the bombing happened at the Olympics and everybody thought it was that security guard? I think they made a movie about his life.
Yes.
You know, we just don't know people. Scapegoating doesn't work. And you know what? We all fuck up. And could you imagine if your worst moments were caught on camera?
They are, Jay.
Well, you can imagine.
Yes, it's awful.
We've both done a little bit of TV where they called mine a docu-series to kind of try to avoid the reality word. I'm a reality denier. No, I did a docu-series. It was very classy. It was on Sundance Channel. I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, so yeah, we've had bad moments and good moments, you know, out there. But yeah, so I think we could learn how we can't scapegoat each other. I think the biggest, I really think it's like billionaires and social media billionaires and big tech love that we fight each other.
Yeah.
They love that we fight each other over politics, and that we nitpick each other's politics, because there's some good things in there to nitpick with one another and write each other off and continue to fight, because I think it keeps them rich. And I think they love it.
That's for sure. It's big business.
You know? And I know I have friends who are conservative who would give me the shirt off their back. And I have friends who are woke that won't let me come in and talk at a hurt Christians meeting because I was on the side of the people who they think did the hurting, and won't let me in on that group, you know, and they say, this is a safe space. I'm like, there's no such thing as a safe space. Maybe AA, but I've seen arguments in AA. Therapy is not very safe for me.
Me neither.
The church is the last place that should be safe. I'll tell you that. It should always kind of stir you, I think. It should always challenge you.
Yes.
It should be like going to see a comedian, you know, where it's kind of uncomfortable. Truth is not comfortable. And
I feel like I'm in church right now. You're good, man.
Well, these are things that I really do passionately believe in, you know. And I saw my parents scapegoated, and it hurt and it felt horrible. I remember one time some people like Mark Driscoll, for example, is a guy I cannot agree with almost on anything. If he said it was day, I'd be like, it's dark.
Yeah.
But he was sharing something about his son and about the media and how his son was a bit afraid of the media. And these people were taking the piss out of him and taking the piss. Oh yeah, he's probably lying about his kid and everything. And I said, nope, this is where I draw the line, everybody. This is his kid he's talking about. You know, And I had a very similar experience to the one he was saying about his kid, how his kid was dressed in camouflage and hiding from the press. I did the same exact thing as a kid myself. And all of a sudden, I had compassion for my enemy. I understood my enemy as a human being and as a father. So if the real sheeple are the people who continue to allow us to be divided. That's we're playing into a bigger game. If we've got to think at a different level than them, and not let them rule the day. It's so easy to say everybody's bad. I mean, if I wanted to be a hit on, like, I have friends who have like millions of Twitter followers, but all they do is scapegoat one side or the other, because it gets great hits. It makes you popular and it does all things like that. I just, life's too short to live that.
Yeah.
Life's too short for that. Maybe 100 years, somebody will find something I wrote or listen to a video and be like, because when I read someone like Freud, and Freud is very, very accessible as a writer. As I look at somebody who's going, like, he was trying to tell us the secrets because he wanted humans to think better and live a better life and live well. I mean, he really was trying to do that. And everyone's like, oh, I did cocaine. They scapegoat him for all this. Oh, he touched cocaine. He let kids do weird sex stuff, Yeah. And I'm like, okay, well, got to remember when he was alive and everything that was going on. But the fact is I think he wanted people to be healthy and to live life well and not be dependent on big pharma, which didn't exist probably at that time either. But the point was, he didn't believe in all of these drugs that we all take. I mean, I take medication. I'm not going to lie, but that's the thing. It's like, and it's funny to see see punk rock friends like fighting like these things of like, yeah, you got to get that shot, and it's like big government and big meds, the medical companies and I got it. I have kids. I believe it's the right thing to do, but I had to think. I had to use my brain, because I'm like, I don't trust the government and I don't trust big pharmaceuticals, and this is their product. And all of a sudden I'm watching these people who would never say, do this. That's why I love Russell Brand. Have you ever watched Russell Brand?
Yes.
I mean, I think he's probably the biggest voice of reason right now out there is Russell Brand. I don't watch his meditation stuff because that's not really my bag, but I really like his, and don't think I'm some conservative here. I'm not. I've never voted for a Republican. I have never voted for a Republican in my life, period. Not even like a sensible one. There was one I really should have voted for once, and we got this insane Democrat person. I learned this one in my 20s, and I still voted for this insane person because I was so much like, I had that line. I was the snowflake. I was the, I get it. I totally get it. But I'm just saying is I'm not going to scapegoat people anymore, and honestly, in the next election, I will find it very hard to vote for anyone if someone who's not more of a socialist doesn't come out, because I'm really left. These things you're hearing are really leftist ideas. These aren't,
Yeah, I get you. What the
do
heck?
You?
I do, Jay. What do you think it is about your mama that?
Let me take off my jacket because it's 500 degrees in my house.
It's getting hot in here. What do you think it is about the wonderful Tammy Faye, who I love and adore, that people are still interested? Is it charisma? Is it the love?
It's the contradiction.
Yeah.
She had everything we've been talking about, to be honest with you. But people see it within the unconscious. They're unconsciously seeing what I'm talking about. Because a little bit of makeup and crazy dressing will get you a certain. I mean, if it was just that,
it'll get you attention.
Every drag queen in the world would be
right. It doesn't keep people.
And that's one of the things I was thinking about the other day is how the first documentary about my mom, which I think is the best thing that's ever been done about her, the original documentary, which was also called The Eyes of Tammy Faye.
Yeah.
And this movie, The Eyes of Tammy Faye, where they kept the name, I kept thinking about The Eyes of Tammy Faye. Even her drugstore eyelashes couldn't cover up the eyes. Mm-hmm. And there was something about her eyes, and you could see, I often would see a lot of pain in my mother's eyes because loving people is painful.
Yes.
And loving people when they don't like you. And I mean, I remember for my mom walking through the mall in the late 80s was like walking through a minefield. Because you had old conservative people yelling really ugly stuff sometimes at us. Liberal people yelling really ugly stuff. I mean, liberals honestly find a whole new level of low. That's what makes it really hard for me, because I always felt like the left was my safe place.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, they can be some of the, because they're very self-righteous about it in a way that even the, you know, like it's this virtue signaling type of thing. It's just like their God is like being PC in a way or something. I don't know, but like they could be really awful too. So we had both sides. This is the thing.
Right.
My family had conservatives and liberals hated them. So it was really fantastic. We brought people together. But for my mom, it was like walking through a mind, and then she'd see kids wearing I Ran Into Tammy Faye t-shirts. Now, what my mom chose to do was walk up to them and sign the shirts and have a laugh with them. You know, God bless you, when somebody told her that she was going to hell or that she was a criminal. And my dad was the same way. I was like, how do you guys go out in public? And they were always like, we love you. God bless you. You know, I mean, like they just never were like, I was just waiting for the day for my mom and dad to turn around and just give somebody the middle finger and be like, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
They never did it.
Yeah.
When the Baptist church, what are the ones that do protest the funerals? You know who I'm talking about, right?
Oh yeah. Westboro.
When Westboro did my mom's funeral memorial, when they protested it, I had my friend drive by, and when I drove by, I put both my hands out and gave them two middle fingers as I drove by. I said, why did you do that? And I said, because I needed to, you know, Mr. Grace, Mr. Love and Compassion. Take it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and my folks never did that. And I was always like, man, there's a lot of, and it's really sad because I do find that I'm very uncomfortable with anger myself and probably could use more of it, or at least better release for it.
I think too, though, that she is an original.
She is original. She loved people, and she brought people together, and she was able to reach people no matter where they were at, no matter what their religion was, no matter what their sexuality was, no matter their age. She could reach people. Like she tattooed one of my friends, Phil Colvin, who is my tattoo artist in Atlanta. He was joking one day and be like, I'd love to have your mom tattoo me. And she was in town. I'm like, Mom, this would be crazy, but my friend has said this thing. And I'm like, would you tattoo him? And she's like, of course.
No.
Called up Phil, and I was like, were you serious about my mom tattooing you? And he's like, get the fuck out. You know, and he wears like all these, like, he's totally an atheist and like has like all these shirts that are like, you know, Jesus with like, you know, eyes, fire shooting out.
You're
like,
reverend.
You know, all this crazy stuff. My mom would care less about any of that stuff. She thinks it's kind of silly. And I kind of do too. But yeah, so she goes in, tattoos them. But before she goes in and tattoos them, she gets a picture of herself. She puts it in frames. Phil, yeah. Then she's give me my makeup. Where's your crazy glue? Where's your crazy glue, honey? I'm like, hold on, I'll get some, because we always have to have crazy glue.
Wait, for
crazy
what?
Glue takes makeup out of her purse, puts crazy glues her makeups onto the frame with the picture, takes it to Phil. So he has this picture, remembers it, sits down and tattoos a little cross with a TF by it.
I am so jealous. I want that.
I am kind of too. I kind of should have like, hey,
yes.
But my mom, you know, and then she would go speak at ORU if they had her. You know what I mean? Like she just. But the thing is I don't know if my mom could exist today. Like I think, like. And honestly, this is the sad thing is, and I think this is maybe what happened to my dad, is I think there's evangelicals kind of embraced him back in because the left was like, he's untouchable, you know? And I think now if my mom didn't come out and clearly state, I believe it's okay to be gay, I think a lot of woke people would cancel her or would push her away because she wasn't clear enough. But in her time when she lived, she could walk a line that brought everybody together. She didn't have to say it. And I know what she wanted to say because I remember she was one of the first people I went to say, Mom, I'm going to announce to the church that I affirm LGBTQ folks. And we had a talk about it, you know, but people don't know that part of her, you know. I mean, when Christians are protesting other liberal Christians at liberal music festivals, things have gotten a little out of hand, you know, like because you're not left enough or you're, you know, I mean, does that not sound like Christianity in the 80s and 90s?
Yeah.
I remember I used to wear my Clinton shirt when I worked at a Christian television station when I was a teenager.
No.
That shirt is, he's the Antichrist, Jay. He is the Antichrist, and maybe they were right because he put so many African-American kids and people in prison. That was pretty awful.
Wow.
And I voted for him the second time, which I couldn't vote the first time, but I worked on his campaign, but I just blindly led by political things rather than facts. So, and he's probably one of the biggest capitalists who ever walked this earth, and then like I recently saw his daughter say something really horrible about my dad, and I didn't say anything, but I wanted to be like, oh, should we compare dads?
Wow. You should have said it.
No, I know I wanted to, but it's just not my style.
I'm a bad influence on you.
No, you're not. Please be that influence. I need more of a bad influence in my life.
Whenever I have my nightly ritual of watching 80s sitcoms, to soothe myself into sleep, I constantly, every single sitcom I watch references your folks at some point, right? And I wonder what it must feel like to think like around any corner, you're going to have to be triggered or...
As a kid, it was terrifying. My parents really rolled with it well. Like they laughed at the church lady interviewing them because my dad loved the church lady because my dad was like, because that was another generation for him. Like we probably didn't have a lot of church ladies. My dad grew up surrounded by real church ladies.
Yeah, like the real deal.
So for him, it's like, I know like these people, this woman exists in real life. And he's like, and this would probably be what it would be like to be interviewed by her, even as, and he thought it was hilarious, or my dad loved the Golden Girls and they would make jokes about them and my dad would laugh. But as a kid, I didn't understand that. As a kid, I wanted to protect my parents, like I just saw them getting shit on all the time. And even when my dad was in prison, I couldn't even go into a church or a youth group without someone making a joke on the stage about my parents if they didn't know I was there. It almost came to the point where I wanted to tell people I was coming to their church so they didn't say anything bad about my parents. So it wasn't only I couldn't watch TV. I mean, I remember when that Poison album, Flesh and Blood, came out, and I was a kid. And I was like, oh man, I can't wait to get the new Poison album. And they had this song, Give Me Something to Believe In. And there's a line in there about some say he was a good man, but Lord, I think he sinned. And he's talking about my dad, and it's in the video. And it was like, oh, I'm so heartbroken, like Suicidal Tendencies had a song about my parents. So it was just like, there was nowhere you could turn without people saying something horrible. And so people don't realize, like, not just what it does to the people who are being attacked, but to the people who love the people who are being attacked, that also damages them. Yeah. And then then all of a sudden, there's no response. Oh, well, that's their fault for being famous, or that's their fault for doing, and then they do the blame game, and don't realize, like, well, no, you've made victims too. Yeah. I mean, one of the things for me is when I hear people talk a lot about church is I'm always interested to be like, well, how long did you stay at that church? And why did you get up every morning and go in? Mm-hmm. Oh, I was being, you're an adult. Right. I understand if you're a teenager, when we were teenagers and we were forced to go to church like 5 times a week. Yes. And that's I get it. But also there's times where it was like, you could have not gone. People were like, when people got really mad at the guy who wrote I Kissed Dating Goodbye, he came out and denounced it. Yeah. And then people were still mad at him.
Yeah, they're still mad.
And I'm like, all right, like it doesn't help a movement or any group at all if you don't eventually, like when someone does what you want, to not celebrate that. Like that doesn't make sense. Yes. To say it's too late doesn't really work. Like there would have been no white allies in the civil rights movement if the leaders weren't like taking people and saying, we're sorry for what we did. Can we join the movement? And then they're like, oh, nope, sorry, it's too late. It's not how you build a community.
Like stop screaming, do better. Cause then if people do better.
And when people do better, you go like, nope, too late.
Not enough.
Like bait and switch. Yeah. Just like the sinner's prayer. And then all of a sudden you got to stand up. You're like, wait a second. I told it was free. Now I got to stand up and now I got to do this. Wait a second. It's that bait and switch. We all do it. It's human nature to bait and switch people like that. And I remember telling people that I'm like, well, damn, man, if you just would have listened to me when I was a kid, I was telling people not to read that book and that it was bullshit and that you should go out and date as much as you could. So you just listened to the wrong guy, but you read the book.
Yeah.
Like, you turned the pages. Like, you didn't know you could pretend to turn the pages and tell your parents it was really good. Like, maybe you needed Jay Bakker's Guide to Being a Teenager, because I was really good at scams.
I bet. Well, I just think you're a dear. Oh, I have one. We have to ask everybody one last thing, which is, if you have a car, what do you keep in the trunk of your car?
Well, I usually, it's where it's a mess because of the bodies.
I hate when that happens.
Yeah, because late at night, that's how I get my anger out.
I did interview a funeral director one time, and his answer was more
well, actually, honestly, I have 3 skateboards.
Nice.
A bag of stuff that I took out of my last car that has just now been put in one spot. There's actually an old Superman action figure that I really need to put on eBay before my son finds it. Because if he finds it, he's opening and playing with it, which is too. And there's a bicycle pump. Mm-hmm. There's a quarter of a windshield washing thing, this big thing. There's some rope from the piñata, the rope that we always use for piñatas at birthdays.
Wow.
Yeah, it's really hard. And then there's an emergency kit and there's a spare tire. It's just hard to do groceries. I put all my groceries, like when my kids are with me, I'm like, okay, we're going to be surrounded by groceries because Dad.
So it's like full in the trunk.
It's full.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's full.
Well, you're ready for anything then.
Yeah.
I see it.
Like, I guess the only thing that would do it is like if I was going to if I was going to go out on a date with somebody I really wanted to impress, then I might empty the trunk. I was one of those guys, like if you came over to my house and it was spotless and I was like, oh, sorry, I didn't have any time to clean. Complete lie. Like for 3 days, I was like, I'm cleaning the whole thing. It's going to be perfect. Oh yeah, I'm kind of lazy.
Sorry for the mess.
Then you marry me and you're like, I don't want to be with you anymore. That's probably why my both marriages fell, is because I'm such a mess.
It's like, if that happens, like if you're going to go out on a date with this lady that's super great, then you have to just DM me and be like, I cleaned out my trunk. Like, I'll know exactly what you mean. We'll be honest.
There's a lady in my life right now that I really like a lot. So hopefully I don't have to, and she knows I'm a mess.
Oh, well, okay. Come as you are then. That's great.
To do that. But she lives far away. So we're both kind of just got our fingers crossed. But I'll let you know if things change and I have to open the trunk.
Oh my God. Well, you're off the hook. I thank you so much for coming on. I do love you so much. I hope you feel it. And I hope you feel like the support that I offer and hopefully that lots of people offer to you, because you're very special.
Well, I appreciate that.